Hello everybody, my name is Nicholas Sadowski. Welcome to Daybreak. A great show today, and I'd just like to thank you so much for joining us. Alright everybody, welcome to Daybreak. It is the finale of, as I like to call it, the first edition of Daybreak. Sort of like a intro to what it is to become in the future. So we're not going to have more on that actually at the end of the episode. I'll get to that later. But in recent news, SpaceX has launched another satellite into space. They seem to be launching satellites every day now, but it's not part of their Starlink project, which actually is kind of actually really interesting because they're launching like tens of thousands of satellites that will give you internet connection anywhere on the globe. You can be on the top of Mount Everest and get an internet connection because of satellites, which is really interesting, and it's not part of like a cell plan. Like there's a difference, so it's really an interesting concept. And also, there's a brand new super fast transportation service. I'm not talking about a bullet train. I'm not talking about a plane. This is a train of sorts. It is an electromagnetic, basically tube with a pod inside that goes faster than a bullet train and just gets you from point A to point B in like half the time of, or like sometimes even 3/4 the time of an airplane. It's really very interesting. It's called the Hyperloop, developed by Elon Musk's company. He owns Tesla and SpaceX, and he also owns Hyperloop now. And if you wanted to take it from Boston to DC, the fast way to get there is by plane, and that takes you about 2 hours. Plus, you have to go through security and the seating, and then the plane with that 30 minutes where the plane's sitting on the runway waiting to refuel and everything, and then the 2.5 hours actually to get there, and then finally have another half hour to get off the plane and do all this stuff. So it's a big process. This thing will get you there in like half an hour. You could get from Boston to DC in a half an hour on this thing. It is ridiculous, and that is actually one of their plans. They're planning on building a northeast line. They have one in India, China. They have them all. They're developing them all over, but it just passed its first successful full run of the thing, which is very, very promising and very, very interesting. And if I get a chance to ride one of those, I'm going to do it. And so just think about how fast you can get somewhere if that was seemingly impossible to get to before. But wait to do that after the show, because my first guest is standing by. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome one of my best friends, Sadowski. He is an author, a saxophonist, and just a great person. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show for the second time, Owen Sadowski. Maybe. There you go. Hello.
Hello, Nick.
Hello. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad you are, because we're going to look at your book today. And your book is sort of a fantasy novel sort of thing. It's really well written and well scripted, and I really like the way you wrote it. So I'm going to, yeah, sorry. I'm going to read a part of your introduction here, because it's just really awesome. Read the last paragraph for our viewers. We lived life day by day, and when I became old enough, my father gifted me with a long sword and a shield. The shield became handy, as the long sword was heavy and I frequently lost my grip. It was then I realized that I enjoyed fighting, and this is what I wanted to do. I had no friends, however I was still able to make fun for myself. I played with the village dogs, and I swam in the lake behind our cottage. Life was peaceful, and we were living happily. Unfortunately, life would not stay that way. Like the way that ends, I'm very intrigued. I want to read more, and I'm sure our viewers do. But before I start my question, I just have to say, like I said at the beginning, this is amazing writing. I've read the whole thing, so I have a certain type of book where there can't be too much detail, where it gets really boring for me to read it, or there can't be too little, where I can't imagine what's supposed to happen. And this is right in the sweet spot, and it's really good for me. So my question is you said you have names like Friendblade, and you have a town called Brenerth and other things. Is this sort of like a Lord of the Rings fantasy setting sort of thing?
Well, it's not directly based off of, well, I suppose it is. It's not directly based off of a specific TV show or game or type of kind of lore. I was as you know, I play Dungeons and Dragons, which is kind of a fantasy game set in sort of the medieval era. And when D&D is really interesting because you get to kind of think of everything yourself. It's a role-playing game, so you make all the decisions. You pretty much can do everything you can do in real life. And so I was creating a character named Stroldum Friendblade, which is the main character of the book. And while I was creating him, I figured out that his backstory was just so interesting, and that kind of thinking about it and making that a story would be a really fascinating thing to do. So that's what I decided to do. And none of the names are directly based off of anything in real life. Actually, it was interesting because turns out kind of medieval names and things are really hard to think of. It's difficult. It's not like a modern name like Sam or John. It's, I don't know, like Albatross or something.
Yeah.
And I had to use a name generator for a lot of the names because it's very difficult. And of course, I typed all of them into Google, made sure that they weren't already taken by anything. But no, it's not directly based off of Lord of the Rings or anything like that.
Okay. But it is based off your imagination playing D&D. So I find that really interesting. And I had Alexandra Duvall on the show last season, and we talked about her process in writing. So what's your process? Do you start with an ending and then you work towards how you get there? Do you start at the beginning and then do you plan out your writing? Like, how do you go about writing?
Well, I planned out the main. I think there's four parts of the book, each with a certain number of chapters, and I've planned out each part, like what the part will have in it, the main kind of summary of the part. And then for each chapter, I planned out kind of the main summary of that chapter, but very, loose, not extremely specific. And then I kind of filled in the details when writing the book.
Okay.
So I didn't, yeah.
And we actually have a question from the audience from Facebook. What is your morning to night writing schedule? You have a schedule.
Well, I don't set a certain. I usually actually after dinner, which is kind of around 7-ish, 7 to sometimes even like 9:30. I just write. I kind of edit what I've already done. I write new things, and then the next day I edit what I've done the previous night, and then I write new things. And it's not every single night. I don't have a date on a calendar where I'm going to write. But I do try to write at least every day. Just
Yeah, that's a good. You should do it every day. You're gonna get a hang of it.
Yeah.
So thank you for our audience who asked that question. And so you said this idea came to you when you were thinking of D&D, or when you were doing your D&D characters and things. After that, was it just sort of, okay, I have the story now in my head, or did you have to go through more development of it in your head before you could actually put it on paper? What went from, I have this idea of Friendblade to, here's my story now?
Well, it's interesting because with Dungeons and Dragons, the way the game works is that you have a group of players, and then you have someone called a dungeon master who kind of controls the story. And the dungeon master reads from some sort of campaign script, and that is how the story is told.
Okay.
He kind of like, for example, the dungeon master would say, you come into this cave and there are so many enemies here. What do you do? And then the players make the decisions about what they do. But that part about you have walked into this cave is scripted. Okay. So it was very difficult because since it's based off of our, Dungeons and Dragons campaign, it was very difficult not to copy the storyline of the campaign.
Right.
And it's kind of trying to have a balance between making it fit in with what I've been doing with my Dungeons and Dragons campaign and not trying to directly use what the story is.
Okay.
But yeah, yeah.
Uh, um, how many years have you been playing D&D?
Actually, not. I've started this year. It was I had always been interested in the concept behind D&D, that you could make every decision yourself and that you could role play as a fantasy character. I've always thought it was really interesting. I've just never really had the opportunity to play. And in sixth grade at my old school, they had a D&D camp, but it conflicted with my schedule, so
Okay.
I couldn't join. So that was kind of disappointing, but I was able to kind of work into it this year. So
That's
they
good.
had a D&D camp in seventh grade after school, and that's how I really got interested in it. And I've been kind of getting more and more enrolled in the idea of D&D. And I've been playing. I'm playing like 3 campaigns at this point.
Yeah. um, how long, like, are you finished? Like, a campaign is like a full thing, so how long do those things take to complete?
Well, it depends. In my opinion, it depends. And I'm not like I don't have the thing. I don't play D&D on my own.
Okay.
I play with other people.
Right.
Like I play in a group. I wouldn't be able to be the dungeon master. I just don't have the tools or skills to do that quite yet. But in my opinion, I think it depends on both the story, like the campaign script that is
Right, yeah.
the dungeon master reads from, or the decisions of the players and how many side quests they go on within the campaign, things like that.
I tried D&D, and it was very complicated, but I'm going to try to give it another shot to really try and understand this. Um,
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people think that Dungeons and Dragons is this incredibly complex. There's a lot of math involved, and it's really not. The thing that makes most people intimidated is the amount of dice rolling involved.
I yeah.
You roll a dice for almost every decision, and that is because you want to make sure that decision is, I wouldn't say fair. I'm not exactly sure how to describe it, but you want to make sure that decision can be played out and it's not always yes, it's not always no. So the dice rolling kind of helps with that randomization of things. And of course, it's not just like if you're a warrior and you're fighting someone, if you roll a dice, it's not always going to be, 0 to 20. If you're a warrior, you're trained in combat. So you're going to get, say, 5 plus bonus. So you add 5 to whatever you roll in the dice. And
Okay.
that is your training. And you create character sheets, and that's how you determine what you're good at.
Okay. Now that you described it, doesn't sound so complicated. This is when I was trying to learn it. We had to go through an entire process, and I'm like, okay, this is just too much. But I'll try it. I'm gonna try it again. But back to the book. One thing I found interesting about your book is that your first chapter is the introduction, and this I've never seen this before, so I was really intrigued by this. And like I said, in most books, the introduction comes before all the chapters. It's sort of an introduction to what the book is going to be about. So my question is your first chapter called Introduction, like chapter 2 is called Leather Armor, or are you considering an introduction to chapter? Because the way chapter 1 introduction is written, it sounds like a chapter. So were you intending that to happen, or how did you come across that?
Well, that's an interesting thing because I didn't I didn't plan for it to be called Introduction. I didn't, try to make a point by calling it Introduction. It kind of when I was writing the introduction, and I originally wrote them separately.
Okay.
Well, I suppose I did plan it then. I was writing the introduction separately. I started off with the introduction, and I had a plan for chapter 1. But then while I was writing it, the introduction sounded so much like what a first chapter would be in
Right.
terms of blending the story in with the introduction of the setting and things like that. I decided just to kind of mesh them together.
Yeah. Are you ever going to change that in the future now that I mentioned it?
Probably not, because like I said, the introduction and the chapter 1 kind of blend in so well
Right, yeah.
I don't think I need two separate, you know, chapters. Chapters.
Are you going to write a new introduction, or are you just going to skip the introduction?
Well, I think since the first chapter introduces the setting and the story, I think I'll keep it as the introduction.
Okay. Um, who are you? So every author has an inspiration and motivation towards what they're writing, or they want to honor somebody by writing it, which is why in a ton of books there's always a, I dedicate this to this person. Who are you writing this book for?
I I don't know if I had a specific person in mind when I was thinking about the idea of the book or writing the book. I think my motivation for writing the book is that it's just so interesting to me that you can think of anything you want and put it onto the page. Of course, it has to make sense.
Right, yeah.
It's just a really interesting setting and kind of era, and there's so many interesting details involved that it's such an intriguing um, kind of story that you can create, and that's why I wrote the book.
Do you like medieval history?
I don't like medieval history more than other history. I do. I am very interested in it and the concept behind it. It's yeah. I guess I am interested in it.
Because when I was reading this, and I just, it's really good, and it's got the good names and it's good storyline, and you've harnessed the dialect of which they use with their like little just smushing thing together, and then all this, and just, like, you made it really sound like the time period, which is really interesting because not a lot of people can do that successfully. So the book is amazing, the writing is good, and you ended up mixing in like culturally appropriate things for the time, which is really good.
Thank you.
Um,
Well, I tried to narrate the main character is Strolden Frimblade.
right,
Frimblade, sorry, is narrating the book, and I tried to make it sound so that he was speaking sort of in the accent of the time,
right.
but without making it sound, you know, like so you couldn't read it.
um, yeah, well, there's this one line in your book where it's they're talking. It's the blacksmith that is talking. It's like the full line of the page is like this old this and old. It's like this. It got apostrophes everywhere. It can be difficult to read at some points, but it's very entertaining. And as I'm reading it, I could picture in my head him walking down the path, saying hi to the blacksmith and everything. It was just a really good experience to read, and I can't wait for more chapters.
Well, yeah, the blacksmith, which is who you're describing, I just put them in there, kind of had fun with him. I created a character in my head, and that character just was so funny. I had to put it into the book. So
Yeah,
he has a kind of a funny accent. He's
I can't
short.
I can't picture the book without him. One of my last questions: do you have any estimation as to when you think you'll complete this book?
At the moment, I'm just kind of writing it. I don't have kind of publishing in mind. I don't really have kind of finishing it in mind. I just want to be there, enjoying, writing in this interesting setting.
Yeah. Um, when you do finish it, I will be very eager to read the whole thing. I'll be reading it while you're writing it anyways, but I mean, it's just the storyline is good, the writing is good, it's solid, it's just very interesting to read, and I am very, as you know, very, very particular with books. And it's very difficult for me to read books that I just don't like. So this is very good, and you've made me happy with this book, so congratulations.
Thank you.
But unfortunately, time flies by when you're having fun, and it is almost 10:20, and we have to go. But I'm not going to let you leave just yet because we have a game for you. This was suggested by Riley Crovinger a while ago. We played with her and then a couple other people. It's called Would You Rather, one of the most famous games you can play. So welcome to Would You Rather. You know the rules, but for those who don't, I'm going to read a series of this or that statements, and you have to choose one of them based on would you rather do this or do you rather do that. First statement. Would you rather read a book or watch a movie? On the book, but the movie isn't accurate when referring to the book.
This is a cliche. I think every person would rather read the book just because
Oh, you don't know
you
me?
can you can visualize the book and and especially if you watch the movie after the book, it just ruins it. You can visualize what's happening in the book, and that's a really interesting thing to do, to kind of read the words and then form a scene in your mind, and you create a movie
Right.
based on what you're reading in the book. And having that done for you just kind of ruins it a little bit, in my opinion.
I would agree to some extent. It's just with books I don't like, I'd just rather watch the movie for it. I had a summer reading project where I chose a book called Ender's Game. I loved the book, and then I watched the movie afterwards. It's actually very close to the book. But I would say for a book that I like, I wouldn't watch the movie beforehand, but I might watch it after. But
I know
for
of
book,
very few movies that are better or as good as the book they're based on.
I think most people would agree with that statement. And most people would agree, read the book. I know my friend Grace would definitely say, read the book first. All right, so next statements. Would you rather never walk again? You can be wheeled around or something, or never be able to see again.
Oh God, those are. Uh, I would say never walk again because you can still kind of experience sight.
Right. Experience the world or experience that.
Yeah, while being wheeled around. But it's a little more. It's more difficult to kind of enjoy what's happening around you.
Right.
It's not impossible, but it is, more difficult. You can't see it.
And this next statement, you and I have actually argued over before. Would you rather lose your taste or lose your sense of smell?
Well, actually, I'm thinking back to your kind of argument, which was taste is part of smell,
No.
and smell, or sorry, the other way around. Smell is part of taste.
Right.
I think I don't smell a whole lot. I don't really, try to actively smell things. I would rather lose my sense of smell.
If anyone came on the show and said I actively try and smell things, that I would immediately kick them off. That well, my reasoning for this, which I was telling you about, is smell is part of taste. So if you lose your smell, you also lose a lot of taste. But if you lose your taste but keep your smell, you can still smell the foods you want to eat, and that helps you visualize how to taste them, which is interesting.
Okay, yeah, but I think still having that morsel of being able to taste things
Right.
is better than my not smelling things very often.
That should go on my reel for my favorite moments. Next statement. Would you rather only eat your favorite food for the rest of your life or never eat it again?
Never eat again? Oh,
No. Never eat your favorite food again. And when you get a new favorite food, you will never be able to eat that again. It's just a continuous cycle.
Well, if you have the same food for the rest of your life, you're eventually going to grow tired of that food, regardless if it's your favorite food or not.
I would disagree.
And then you'd be stuck with that for the rest of your life. I would say just take the variety, because you may not think it's your favorite food, but you can still really enjoy it.
Right. My favorite food is buffalo chicken wings, and I would go a whole life just eating buffalo. You would get in this statement, you would get no health issues. I mean, you'd obviously get health issues if you ate chicken wings for the rest of your life, but oh man, I just want some buffalo chicken wings right now. All right. Next and last statement. Would you rather be in a movie, but it flops, so it doesn't go well, or forever be known for nothing?
Well, I mean, if the movie flops, there's not there's not really, a penalty.
I mean, you're ridiculed for it, and it's just like this actor.
Oh,
It's like if you were. I'm not gonna hurt an actor here, but if it's like you were a terrible actor and your reputation was forever tarnished by this movie, like, oh, this actor's awful. This is terrible.
I would rather be known for nothing because it's better to be at 0 than to be at like -1.
Well said. And we are perfectly on time. Wow. I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for the game.
Thank you for having me.
Daybreak. Wonderful book. Phenomenal writing. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
All right. So that was Owen Sadowski. He talked about his book. I'd like to thank you for coming on. It was a great interview. We had a little bit of a mix-up in scheduling today. We were supposed to have Samuel Lerich first and Owen Sadowski last, but instead Owen Sadowski came first, which is why our game was in the middle. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show a great friend of mine, the wonderful, talented, excellent board game player, Samuel Lerich. Maybe. The connection's a little bad, so I apologize if it takes a while for them to see the request. Samuel. Let me try this again. Hold on. There you go. Hello, Sam.
My face.
Yes, I can see your face. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for the praise.
And I haven't seen you in a while. I haven't seen you since like 8th grade. Your hair has gotten much longer.
I just haven't cut it since quarantine.
It looks good. I will say it looks really good. You should keep it that way. But today we're here to talk about your love for board games, and you're going to review a couple board games for us. Now, this is very similar to what we had with Riley, and you're actually scheduled to be on the show with Riley. She's going to review the TV shows, and you're going to review the games. And unfortunately, due to a scheduling mix-up, you got moved around, and I kept screwing up the scheduling for you. You're supposed to be in Season 3, and then I forgot, so that's my fault. But you're here now, and I'm very grateful that I finally got you on the show. So,
Yay.
just a bit of info. I'm going to give you the same questions for all of your games that you're going to introduce to us today, so people can make a decision for their own of which ones if they want to buy them. I'll include like purchase links if you want in the description of the video. So, all right, here we go. What is your first game?
So my first game is actually also based on D&D, so it should lead in very well from the last person. Oh,
Dungeon Lords.
yep. And I actually have the board set up over here. We can go into that in a minute.
Can you buy additions to like? Can you buy extra characters to the game?
Actually, no, and it's very complicated, so you probably wouldn't want to anyway.
Okay, so everything in the box is what you get, and that's it.
Correct.
Okay. Can you customize your pieces? Like in Warhammer, you can paint your models. Is there like a modeling?
Yeah, I suppose. So the way this game works is different from D&D. So the point of view is from, remember how he was talking about the DM, the dungeon master?
Right.
You're the person who's controlling the dungeon.
Okay.
And you're trying to make sure that really annoying heroes don't destroy it for you. Cat go away. Cat shoot. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
Yes.
What is the average time to complete this game? Because it says very complicated, so I'm assuming it's going to take a while.
It actually, the thing is, once you get used to it, it doesn't take that long. About 2 hours.
Okay.
1.5 if you're really on a roll.
Are there different ways to play the game? Like, is it like a?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's actually a very different game with the different number of players. So it's 2 to 4 players.
Okay.
So with 2 players, each person also controls a dummy board, so that the dummy board, because the main board doesn't change, the pieces that go onto it have to be the same number. So each player essentially controls 2 players.
Oh, okay.
Sort of. But then when you get to 4 players, each person has their own board, but they also have like additional artifacts, and everything gets way more complicated and entertaining. Cat. Sorry.
It's fine. We're all. So this, wow, this game sounds very, very confusing.
Not really. Well, it is very confusing at first,
Okay.
but after 1 game, maybe 2, it's repetitive.
Okay. And speaking of confusing, is there like a learning curve? Is like there's this thing that you have to just eventually get over after a while playing it? Is it just learn how to play the game, or is there a specific learning curve to playing?
The learning curve is basically before you understand the rules and after. That's about it.
Okay.
There might be even more later on. I haven't reached that point really. But yeah.
And you said that the game is different based on the number of players. Is there an ideal number of players that you recommend?
The more chaotic.
Oh,
And the
okay.
more chaotic, the more fun.
And what is, so you said it's the board. Does it get any bigger than that? Like, what's the size?
No. Well, so one of those boards is per player,
Okay.
but you don't have to worry about each other players, only your own. So really, it doesn't get any bigger than that.
Okay. And D&D has some set rules, but it's like a role-playing game. Is this sort of like that?
No, this is very set in stone. It's just the world is similar.
Okay. Do you have the instructions with you? How thick is the book?
Oh, it's not that bad. Only, let me check. Why doesn't it have page numbers? Okay, I'll have to count manually. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24. 24 pages.
Wow.
But the first like 3 are just what tokens are in here and explaining what the game's about.
3 pages?
Also, it is important to note that this rulebook is interesting because it's funny.
Oh.
They went out of their way to add like little tidbits of the monsters talking, and it's actually
nice.
very. So.
The first rulebook that's entertaining to read.
Yep.
And you said that the world is similar to D&D. Is the lore similar to D&D as well? Is there a storyline to this?
There isn't really lore, but it has that whole, wizards and knights and monsters and dungeons and that whole shtick. So it's that type of thing, that style.
All right. So that wraps up the first game. Just turn it around one more time just so we can see the box for the last time.
So the box. This.
Dungeon Lords.
Indeed. A little goofy looking. Anyway.
All right, what is your next game?
So the next game is 1,000 times more simple.
Oh, that's good.
So it is called Race Arcana.
That's a very, very detailed box.
Yes, and it's actually a lot smaller than the last one.
Oh,
so
okay.
The game board is very small over here. This is the entire thing.
Oh, that's more my type of game.
Yeah. Each game is also very short, so yeah, it's sort of a little thing.
So I'm gonna ask you the same question. So can you buy additions to this game?
I'm not aware of it. It did come out fairly recently, so probably not.
Can you customize the already existing pieces?
The pieces are cards, so I mean, yeah, you could.
And
Stop knocking the box over.
what were those colored things in that? I think it was a hexagon or something.
Right, yes. So a large part of this game is that you can, tap cards or burn cards, whatever it is you want to do with the cards, that will allow you to get those tokens to buy more cards.
Okay. Are there different ways to play this game?
Actually, yes, there are. So there's the basic version where you have however many players it is, 2 to 4, and everyone. So there's a main deck of cards, and everyone gets their number. I think it's 6 or 7, and then they just play through the game like that. So that's the first version. The second version is 2-player only.
Okay.
Because the deck is big, you can do it so that the first round, everyone gets their cards, and then that's the first game. Then the second game, you take out all of the cards that were used, put them aside, and now you have a smaller deck of cards that they could possibly have. So, yeah, here's the deck, and it's a fairly big deck. But each of those cards only appear once.
Okay.
So after the first game, you take out this many, and suddenly only this many will appear, which means at the start of the next game, if you were paying attention, you should be able to guess some of the cards your opponent has.
Oh, interesting. So it's like part memory, sort of.
Yeah. It adds another element to it.
What is the average time to complete?
Most likely a half hour to 45 minutes. Yeah, it's very quick.
It's not, I think
the first game will be a little bit longer because rules and all, but
right. You said the number of players is 2 to 4. Shows the size. Is there set rules, or is this also role playing?
Set rules. Okay. Board games.
Is there a storyline lore?
Not as far as I'm aware. There's a lot of different depictions of dragons and other stuff.
Okay.
Maybe if you pay a lot of attention and delve through the cards, you can figure something out, but I haven't really. There's no.
All right. And final question for this one, is there a learning curve to this game?
Definitely. So, yeah, there's, at the beginning, it's sort of just, what should I do next?
Okay.
Later on, it should be, what am I going to be doing in 5 turns?
Okay.
So, it's pretty, yes.
I think your cat loves the camera.
Yep.
I'm gonna consider your cat a guest on the show. Okay, so that is really adorable. And so that was Res Arcana, and the third and final game of which you are going to be reviewing for us today is
one of the most complicated games I own.
Oh boy.
Mage Knight.
Okay. Why is Mage Knight so complicated?
So there's a couple of little reasons. The first is that the rule book, well, there's 2 of them.
Okay.
There's
first rule books?
There's 2 rule books. The first one's a walkthrough, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
The first one is 20 pages long. And then the walkthrough is also 20 pages long. So right off the back, that's 40-page rulebook. Additionally, unfortunately, the rulebook is really badly set up.
Okay.
So it's kind of really annoying. Also, combat is extraordinarily confusing and doesn't make any sense.
Okay. 40-page rulebook.
You should see Gloomhaven. I think it's 52. And an expansion is coming soon.
Okay. So, just a lot of pages. It's like the game. It's basically like playing another game just by reading the rule book.
Gloomhaven really is like D&D. It's a lot bigger, and it is sort of role play and also set in stone at the same time. So it's cool. Anyway.
So to read 52 pages is going to take a while. How long does it take to actually play the game?
So the time on the box, it says, if I can find it, can I find it? Why can I not find it? Oh yeah, 1 to 4 hours.
Okay.
And then, but also there's a bunch of different ways to play. So some are longer than others. That's why it says 1 to 4 hours. That's a very big time zone.
Yeah, that's a very wide time gap.
Yes, there's multiple scenarios you can play.
Okay.
You can also play it solo. You can play it with multiple players. As you like.
You've actually basically answered all my questions in that thing there. So we actually have a question from the audience. How expensive do all three of these games, like individually, how expensive are all three of them?
Okay. Dungeon Lore, the cheapest would be Race Arcana. I don't know how much they cost exactly. Race Arcana would definitely be the cheapest.
What if it's a price range?
It's hard to know. I would guess between like $25 and $75.
Okay.
You know, it's fairly cheap for a board game.
And what is the most expensive here? I'm gonna assume Mage Knight.
Mage Knight, because just like pieces.
Oh my god.
There's a lot of pieces. Gloomhaven, the thing I mentioned earlier, I think was $325 and weighs, I think it was 125 pounds.
What?
Yeah, it's big. Like
it weighs 125 pounds.
Yep.
Like a person.
Yeah. You can go get the box.
I don't understand
it's big. It's big.
What are the pieces made out of? Like metal?
Plastic and cardboard.
No. They can't be made of plastic cardboard and then be what?
Okay, it probably is more like 50, but still.
I was gonna say 125 pounds.
I mean, the box is like bigger than my torso, so I mean, it is.
What the? Okay, well, oh jeez.
If I'm ever on the show again, maybe I can do the entire thing on just that.
You spent an entire just show talking about that. My God, that is enormous.
It is enormous.
My final question before we're out of time: what is your favorite out of these three games? Dungeon Lords, Race Arcana, and
I enjoy Dungeon Lords the most. It's kind of funny as you're playing it. Like, there's all of these systems, and there's so many ways to screw other people over, which is very entertaining. And then you never know who's gonna win. So, like, one person can be really looking like they're winning, and then suddenly they lose at the end.
right.
So it's a lot of fun.
And that's all the time we have. Thank you for. I'm gonna look into Race Arcana. It seems like a game I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the
It's a
show.
little bit like Magic the Gathering, which I know you like.
Yes, I do like Magic. Yes.
It's that kind of card game. So
Okay.
Should be up your alley.
But I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. We are on
Thank you for
time,
having me.
which is very interesting. But thank you for coming on. Thank you for reviewing the games for us. I apologize for not having you come on sooner, but we got you on finally, just in the nick of time, so thank you.
And sorry that my light didn't work as I hoped it would.
Oh, it's fine. Thank your cat for also coming on the show. He's a very valued guest.
Well, see you next time.
All right. All right, so that was Sam Lerich. We had a great interview. If you want to purchase any of those games, Dungeon Lords, Race Arcana, or Mage Knight, I'll include a link in the YouTube video's description. So if you want to check those out, just go to the YouTube channel and then click one of the links. They'll bring you to an Amazon page. This video probably won't be out till like later in the day today. But I'd like to thank everyone for coming on the show. And as I said at the beginning of the episode, this is going to be the final episode of Daybreak as it stands right now. So I actually have a monologue that I've written down. So yeah, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. The first edition of Daybreak is over. 4 seasons, 20 episodes, 39 guests over the course of 4 months. What a crazy ride it's been. I cannot be more pleased with how this turned out. If you look back, well, you can't really, but if you look back to episode 1, you can see just how much the show has evolved over time. New games, longer episodes, a theme song, YouTube, and more coming soon. And fun fact, actually, about the show, when I originally did the show, I wanted to be like a real talk show, so I printed cards for my guests. This is Grace's first appearance on the show. I had these little Daybreak cards with the questions on them. I can't use them anymore because they use so much ink that I was like destroying the printer. But I originally started using cards on them. There's the games and everything. But I have those for Ben Gaynor. I have some Riley Crovinger ones. But it stopped after season 1 because the printer just couldn't take anymore. And if you notice, by the way, this suit and the tie. This is the exact suit I wore on the interview with Alexander Duvall the first time I wore a suit on Daybreak. So a little hint back to that. That was season 3, episode 3. But I'd like to express my gratefulness to all of my guests who have come on today and in the past. Ben Gaynor, Grace Maroney, Riley Crovinger, Owen Sadowski, Owen Comiskey, Connor Long, Layla Bailey, Abby Keefe, Faith Gagnon, TJ Bonica, Morgan Lanham, Sterling Williams, Natalie Lacey, Alexander Duvall, Bianca Anderson, Cora Thompson, Thomas O'Toole, and Sam Lerich. I also like to thank the people who wanted to come on the show but couldn't, unfortunately. As you know, we were supposed to have Emma Thompson on the show and a few others. So Emma Thompson, Taylor Kendall, Sam Lapperly, Kendall Poulin, Allison Topper, and Hunter Richards. I thank all those people. They wanted to come on the show, but unfortunately couldn't because of scheduling issues. And this is a very early show, and it's just very complicated for some people to be on it. The time will not be changing, but I like to thank all those people for coming on the show. They are the ones who make this show possible. I won't have a show if I don't have guests. No other talk show is like Daybreak because Daybreak features you or people you know. It doesn't feature Harrison Ford because you don't know Harrison Ford. You see him in movies, but you don't know him personally. You know Grace Maroney personally if you're from DS. You know me personally if you're from Norwell or Abby Keefe. So you know these people. And it's been my pleasure to interview all of you and present this to the viewers. I'd also like to thank the people who have suggested things to make Daybreak better. Cynthia Davies for the out-of-show questions. She can't watch the show right now because it's at a time that is inconvenient for her. And we have an in-show questioning system where if you want to ask a question to a guest, you can just put in our questions feature. But she said, well, what if you can't watch the show, but you still want to ask a question to the guest? She suggested that on Facebook or Instagram, which Daybreak is on, we can put like on Wednesday thing where people can write questions and I can add them to my questions list, which is what that question was for Owen. That was from that system. So thank you to Cynthia Davies for that suggestion. Riley Crovinger for the flipped interview suggestion, one of my all-time favorite interviews. And the Would You Rather game, that was her suggestion, so thank you to that. And thank you to Grace Maroney for convincing me to do this. I was actually on a call with Grace when I was writing up the plan for Daybreak. It was a Google Slides, because I didn't know anything else to do. And I was talking to her, and she gave me the confidence to then actually go through with it, because I was a little skeptical of how it would go, but she convinced me. She gave me the confidence I needed to do this, so thank you to Grace Maroney. But as you know, there will not be a show next week, and that goes for the entire month of August. And I'm gonna miss the show. The show is sort of like okay, it's the end of the week. It's a good refresher. I love doing this show. I like dressing up in suits. I like interviewing people. It's just what I like doing. Whether you like me interviewing people or not, whether you think I'm a good interviewer or you think my monologues are cheesy or not, I enjoy them. I like doing them, and I think right now there's 5 people watching. It is very early in the morning, but I mean, I'm gonna give you some statistics on how Daybreak actually does. We have 20 followers on Facebook. I don't have a lot of followers on Facebook anyways, but we have 20 followers up to the page, 33 YouTube subscribers, 186 Instagram followers, around 141 watch hours in total across all platforms. So people have watched the show 141 hours in total, which is amazing. And around 1,679 views across all platforms. We are close to 2,000 views across YouTube and Instagram. That to me is just mind-blowing. I can't believe the reception this has got. I'm so grateful for even people I don't know on YouTube who watch the episodes. Just it brings happiness to me, and just makes me happy to see that people love the show that much. And the show's not going away. We'll be back sometime in September. We'll be taking a break in August. So normally I would close out the show by saying, see you next time at Daybreak, as a little pun. But I won't be seeing you for a while. So instead, just let me say thank you. Thank you for being the most supportive audience ever. Thank you to my Daybreak Board of Ideas, Grace Maroney and Riley Crovinger, for helping me with the show. Thank you to my family, who's been super supportive and helped with my suggestions. I asked to give them my questions and they gave me advice. Thank you to my brother, Owen, who we had on today, who agrees to do this. Thank you to all of my guests. Thank you to the people watching on Instagram. It's just, I can't believe we've actually made it through 20 episodes and are still going. I'm surprised we even made it a few episodes. I look back to like episode 1, 2, and 3, and I'm like, wow, that was terrible. I did not do well there. My questions were off. I said way too much. I said a lot today actually, but I said way too much. I do this and this and this, and I criticized myself in the past. And then I just look at these recent episodes and I'm like, wow, look at how far this show has come. Look at how far I've come in interviewing people. Look at how far people have come in liking the show and wanting to. I've had people offer to come on. I've usually asked people if they want to come on the show. People said, hey, I want to come on the show. It's such a good feeling. So the last thing I have to say to you guys, and for a long time, is thank you for being super supportive, and goodbye.
Robert, California.
Oh, it's you too. Oh, it's you
Yes,
too.
what's on?
Oh my god. Is it my dad's gonna be so mad at me. Yeah, see, he's already mad at me.
You can do it.
I'll wait for you, or is it I'll
Close.
be waiting for you? Or
That's not the name of it, but it's super close.
oh god. Oh, my dad's gonna be so mad at me. Yeah, it's you too. I know it's you too. I'll wait for you. Is it I'll wait for no? Oh my god. Is it it's with or without you?
Yes.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay.
You get 2 points.
See, my dad's so mad at me. I'm sorry.
That is all the time I have for the interview, but I'm not going to let you go just yet because we're going to be playing a game that you suggested to Daybreak, and I'm very grateful that you did because it got great ratings, and this is proof that we actually do take your suggestions and we do use them. So, Riley, welcome to Would You Rather. So, yes.
Someone dragged him off stage. It was fine. We kept going, but I didn't really know what to do.
You kept going?
Yeah.
What did the audience think? Was the audience
I don't know.
what the hell has happened?
I don't know.
Oh God, I did not expect that answer.
How are you doing?
I'm good. You? How are you since you were? Oh my gosh, how are you since you were last on the show?
You'll start sounding like William Shatner really fast. And then she moved towards the door.
I got this picture from
Oh no.
this Abby.
Yeah. Yes, this Abby. That Abby, yes.
Oh, that's never gonna get old.
about film, and we're gonna do it together. So she's like my second in command, basically.
And he talked about you as his second in command. Would you say that you are his second in command, or will you say that you are the first in command and he is your second in command?
There's no first or second in command. It's not like an air spaceship or something like that.
Please welcome your co-host for today. We just had her on, Riley Kravinger.
Hi everybody, I'm Riley Kravinger and I'm going to be your host at Daybreak today, and we have such a great show planned. So I'd like to welcome my guest, the talented musician, a resident of Norwell, Massachusetts, and the wonderful host of Daybreak, Nicholas Sadowski. Hi, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. My experience with golf, if you can even call it that, is in mini golf. And I'm not even great at that.